My name is Alina and welcome to Mentally Strong Mum. So this session we're going to be having a look and understanding about codependency, enmeshment, and emotional contagion, 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 right? So I've had a couple of individuals and couples lately who have presented as this. And sometimes there's some misunderstanding about what a codependent relationship looks like, what actually enmeshment looks like, how to be able to what emotional containment kind of looks like, and how sometimes your self-worth is essentially tied up and wrapped up in the other person. So how you may not have a lot of internal validation, internal worth, know who you are internally. And when you're in this relationship dynamic, you get your self-worth and your validation externally from your partner. If they're in a good mood with you, you then feel good about yourself. If they're in a bad mood, I feel like I need to fix her or I've done something wrong. If they're giving you the silent treatment, I panic and I have to figure out how to be able to resolve that, right? So understanding and especially our last podcast, we understood what secure attachment is when you're the secure partner with an avoidant partner or an insecure partner, okay? So this is just a further understanding of what these terms kind of look like, right? So sometimes when it comes to emotional containment and enmeshment, when we're, right? The metaphor kind of feels like this magnet illustrate how one person's moods mirror their partner's mood. So if they're happy, then I'm happy. If they're sad, then you know what I mean? It's this classic pattern of emotional enmeshment, right? And how this dynamic, because you're essentially dependent on that codependency, dependent on the other person and their mood and their energy, this dynamic drains your energy and highlights the interconnectedness of partner emotions, especially in stressful relationships. Because if we were both secure, happy, boundaries, all of that kind of stuff, we don't then have this energetic drain from the other person. If I know how to make myself happy, I don't then depend on other people to make me happy. If I know my own worth, I then don't depend on other people for me to prove their worth, to get their praise, to know that I'm worthy, right? So it can be really, really exhausting. And so sometimes we use the analogy of sometimes when you walk into a room and immediately you feel like you're on edge, like a meerkat, right? Hypervigilant kind of stuff. Not because of anything happened to you, but because of how someone else in the room feels. It's not just sensitivity, it's emotional contagion and how it can be a symptom of emotional enmeshment, right? And if I was talking to hypothetically a sound healer, sound healers work with frequencies and vibrations. When you're happy, you're at a happier vibration. And when you're around someone with a high vibration, they're good, they're fun to be with, and they're wonderful. But when someone has a low vibration, for example, if they're really depressed, that then being in their presence because of their low vibration, even if you had a high vibration, being around them drains your vibration together, right? So when we understand about when people come in for therapy and what they're asking for, sometimes it's like when one partner walks in and they're calm, but they're watching the other person very closely. And then as the female, hypothetically, her distress escalates, his mood then changes to matches her, right? He then tenses and he's now anxious too. And it's not empathy, it's this unusual fusion, right? um, Understanding how when you live with someone and what that's like and how that impacts you, because we're mammals, we have safety in numbers, and sometimes we have these mirror neurons, and how we mirror the other person as a sign or evidence that I'm listening and I care for you, all of that stuff, right? So enmeshment is when your emotions, your thoughts, and your identity are so fused with the other that you don't know when you end and they begin. Okay? And codependency is when you derive your self-worth through the approval or well-being of others. Obviously, sacrificing your own needs just to keep the peace or to try to maintain connection. Okay? So sometimes there's this misunderstanding with codependency about being in each other's pockets all the time, and it's not really what it is. It's when your self-worth is dependent on the other partner's validation or how well you've done, or if they think positively of you. So then you're codependent. Your worth is then wrapped up in how happy the other person is, right? So people sometimes understand, is this a condition, is this from childhood, is this a trauma response, have I fallen into this, is this a nature versus a nurture situation? If we have wombs and we're nurturers, is it because it's this accidental path of nurturing the other person and then wanting to always make them happy, and then when I feel like I've failed, I then feel like a failure and I'm then hard on myself, right? So it can also be attachment styles. When you're with someone, your attachment changes depending on living in a house with someone all the time. Is it like walking on eggshells? Is it accidental manipulation that the other person's doing to, for whatever reason, whether they've got underlying mental health, to kind of make you feel bad, to make themselves feel better, right? So if hypothetically this was happening, if you learned this behavior in childhood, sometimes it might look like the good girl syndrome. And the good girl syndrome is essentially you got attention and affection and worth from your parents when you were the good girl, when you did good things, when you were helpful, when you were polite, when you weren't angry, right? So then if this is then rooted in childhood about who I am, and if love was conditional, so love is either unconditional and I love you no matter what, and I love you no matter what you do, or love is conditional. I only love you on these specific conditions. On when you're good, I will then love you. If you're bad, you're a piece of something. Do you know what I mean? So, especially in childhood, if you had good girl syndrome and your love was conditional, or you were then parentified as a child, parentified means essentially instead of your mother or father, the parent figure, instead of them being parents to you and nurturing you and looking after you, they didn't have the capacity or they were emotionally immature. So then you learned how to get love from them on how well you parented them and you met their needs and you validated them and you parented them and looked after them and nurtured them. So you were then managing their emotions. So if your parents were depressed, you would manage their depression. If they were anger, you would then manage their anger or prevent it in some ways. If they were really needy, that hot and cold ambivalent, and I never knew what I was doing right and I never knew what I was doing wrong, but I would always go above and beyond because all I want is acceptance and love, right? That can be part of that good girl syndrome too, because that's all I ever wanted. You then learned to anticipate other people's emotional state as a survival strategy. So you're then this meerkat because you're able to anticipate and understand if someone's face has changed, or if their walk, or I can hear them walking down the hallway. Oh, they walk like they're angry. Geez, I've got to get out of here. Or oh no, car. They, do you know? So you're able to, because you're hyper vigilant like a meerkat. Hypervigilance, remember, is the quickest way to exhaustion. When you're really hypervigilant, you're able to see everything, right? So if your emotional safety depended on how someone else was feeling, of course you're going to be a master at reading their mood. Do you want me to say that again? If your emotional safety depended on how someone else was feeling, of course you're going to become a master of reading their mood, okay? Because that is then wrapped up in your worth. So when we look about this magnet, right? When your partner is in a bad mood, it sticks to you like a magnet, right? Their stress becomes your stress. Their overwhelm becomes your shutdown, right? Their anxiety becomes your irritability. So this is emotional contagion. And when it's really chronic, it's actually quite debilitating. So you're constantly reacting, not just with your own life, but with the moods of others and trying to anticipate and trying to figure it out and trying to heal and trying to be proactive and trying to. Whew, man, I'm tired, right? There's no peace. There's no chill, right? It's like you feel drained after being with certain people. You can't separate your mood from others. You constantly try to fix others so that you feel okay or you feel worthy or you feel valued. You walk on eggshells just to keep the peace. And that's what we said in the last episode. When you're the secure, you learn to put their needs above yours. You then learn to self-silence. It's just easier that way. And then when they're happy with you, then you feel worthy, right? So this obviously can show up in romantic relationships where you are then the overfunctioner, where you overfunction, you manage your partner's emotional world, therefore losing your own identity. It feels like you're the caretaker, right? You might feel like if they're not okay, then I'm not okay, okay? And that can be exhausting, and you've got another child, right? When it comes to parenting, you then project your own emotions onto your kids, or then expect your kids to meet your own emotional needs, right? Well, you knew I was going to the doctor today, Billy. Why didn't you ask me about it? You know I was anxious. Billy's like, okay, I don't know. How was the doctor, Mum? I don't know, right? It's not your child's job to regulate your emotions or to validate your worth as a parent. You're the parent. You're meant to do that for them. Okay? If they don't essentially care about or remember everything that's going on in your life, they shouldn't have to, because you're the parent. You look after them, you nurture them, you support them. You know what I mean? If these situations arise, that's completely okay. But parentified, um, having children that are really parentified and they learn that their job essentially is not to be a kid, it's to manage your moods or manage or regulate you or make you feel special or make you feel loved, right? And all of this, so is the relationship, the parenting. And if you've got friends that are like this, it almost feels like chronic people pleasing. It then leads to resentment. You then avoid and then burnout. So I'm pretty sure we've all got a friend kind of like this, and it's just exhausting, right? And all you want to say is go to therapy, get it sorted out. I'm not your therapist. Why? It's always about you. You know what I mean? I love you. I love you very much, but I'm tired. And then every time you text me or call me, I have now a reaction where I'm like, oh, I can't. I don't have the mental capacity to deal with that, right? So when you want to then understand, be compassionate to yourself and validate yourself, remember internal validation, maybe I tend to emotionally fuse with others. Maybe I do that. Maybe I realize now I've just been triggered by everything Alina has just said. And I realize that I was probably had good girl syndrome and parentified. And now I see that in my romantic relationship. Oops. And I think I'm repeating that in my kids. You're just learning this now for the first time. At least you're learning it now and not in another 10 years. You know what I mean? There's no shame. We look at everything with curiosity, okay? Where there's no judgment here. It's better that you're learning this now than not knowing at all. And, so have compassion for it. whoopsie, I didn't realize I was doing that. Jeez. Now at least I realize who I am, how my identity is wrapped up, and where my worth comes from. And maybe I should start working on having secure attachment with myself. Okay? So when we're able to name it and understand it without shame, without putting yourself down, right, without judgment, look at it with curiosity. So then now, I'm realizing that I'm feeling something, and okay. So first step, separate it. How are they feeling? Name it. Cool. That will be easy for you. How am I feeling? That will be difficult for you, because if you have always been conditioned to figure out how everyone else feels, or to read faces, or to read body language, and you're an empath or whatever that looks like, you're always understanding external and who they are, but you haven't actually spent the time or had the luxury to understand yourself internally. So when you say, how am I feeling? Sometimes that's a very, very difficult conversation to actually drop into your body and notice what's happening and what you're feeling. All right. When someone else is upset, can you sit in discomfort while letting someone else feel upset without rushing to fix it? If they're upset, just chill. It's all okay. You don't need to fix it. It's not your stuff. Their stuff is their stuff. My stuff is my stuff. I can sit with them without having to fix it. Remember what we learned in that last one? Just noticing with curiosity what's happening to your body, and if you're actually uncomfortable and you need to make it go away, right? So when we have a look at boundaries, you can have boundaries with other people. You can have boundaries with your own mind. You can have boundaries with even things like finances. You can have boundaries with your kids, right? When it comes to energetic boundaries, right, instead of feeling like a helium balloon, your boundary is stop, balloon, ground yourself, put your feet on the earth, and then ground yourself energetically by saying things like, it's their feelings, not mine. I can hold compassion without holding their pain. All right? It's not my job to fix them. It's not my job to fix everything. Right? Just being able to get back in your body, regulate, exhale for at least 4 seconds, and then you start to rebuild your identity. So what do I want today? What's important to me right now, right? If this is triggering me, what do I need to calm myself down, right? What am I actually feeling in my body? So obviously, monkey see, monkey do. So enmeshment can be passed down. So if you learnt that from your mum, and that was normal and healthy in your family at home, that the dad would always and the mum would always meet his needs and manage his emotions and whatever, right? Maybe that's why you're doing what you're doing, because monkey see, monkey do, that was normalized in your household. So enmeshment can be passed down. And if you want your children to have healthy relationships so they don't go through this, let them have their own emotions without needing to make you happy. Model saying, I'm okay sometimes, even if you're not around your kids. Because if you're not, they're going to get worried. They're going to try to manage your moods, right? Maybe if you can't do that, just ask for a simple hug, but it's not their job to kind of fix you, right? Show them that it's safe to say no, that they're allowed to have boundaries with you, even if you're their mum, okay? And if they want to take space, or if it's too much, and if they can't be there, or if they want to play whatever, let them do it, right? Teaching your kids, especially if you have a parentified kid or a hypervigilant kid, sometimes even a neurodiverse kid, right? Teaching your kid, I'm the adult, you're my child. I'm the one that's meant to be here for you. You're not meant to be the one that's here for me. Okay? Child, you are not responsible for my mood, and I'm not responsible for yours. I'm allowed to feel how I feel, and if I'm upset, that's okay, and I will fix that on my own. If you are upset, you're my son or you're my daughter, Billy, or Billy can be female and male. You're my child, Billy. I want to be there for you and help you get through this so you can learn. I'm an adult. If I'm upset, I'm allowed to feel how I feel. It's not your job to, right? We can support each other with respect. So then you're helping your kids learn in a healthy way that I'm allowed to feel what I feel. If I'm upset, I'm allowed to be upset. It's not their job to fix you. If you do want to cuddle, that would be beautiful, but let me kind of figure it out on my own. If they're upset, of course, come to me. Let me help. Let me be there, even if I sit next to you without saying something so that you don't feel alone. Okay? So we're all allowed to feel differently than the people that you love. Okay? You are all allowed to put your emotional well-being first. Remember all of those sayings? Put your oxygen mask on first. You've got to be able to recharge your own batteries and recharge your own cup, because if you're completely empty all of the time, you're going to fall apart, and then you just, right? You're allowed to have boundaries, even with your kids, even with your partner, even with your own mother, if these are like reoccurring themes in adulthood. Realizing in the real world, though, healing codependency and enmeshment is really hard, especially if you've been doing it for decades and you're just learning this today, like right now, okay? Especially if your nervous system is wired for it. Instead of being independent and me, it's wired, my worth is from other people, or that enmeshment, or the codependency, right? It's like you're a sponge and you soak in everyone else's stuff, okay? So every moment of awareness and being present in your body, every time you pause and ask, is this mine? You're then rewiring your emotional inheritance. So when you're feeling a certain way, is it because I'm a sponge and my partner's feeling this way and now I'm feeling this way? Do you know what I mean? So by relearning all of this within yourself, you're not just healing you, you're actually healing for your children. You're going to demonstrate a healthy relationship. And in a relationship, it's not your partner's job to make you happy, and it's not your job to make them happy, right? We're here to be able to just be a beautiful family unit and support each other and help meet each other's needs as best as we can. But most importantly, your job is to make you happy, right? So I hope all of that was helpful for you. I know it's really difficult if you are a sponge and if you are used to be able to absorbing everyone else's emotions. So please, ladies, protect your sponge. Your sponge is very important. If your sponge has been here for a very long time, understand why with curiosity. Is a good girl syndrome? Were you kind of parentified? Is that where you got your worth from? Right? How is that being repeated in your romantic relationship? Was it like that in the beginning? So is this something that's always kind of happened, or has it only happened recently? Right? How do you then look after yourself without guilt? That's the huge one. Without guilt. Mother guilt is huge, right? And shame. Okay? Thank you so much for today. Look after yourself. And if you need anything, please let me know. All right. Bye.